Okay, we're back live. Yesterday was an off day. I had a conference that I had to go to for social workers, but it was really, really worth it. And I was reminded of something really important. There's this idea about, how alone we've become, how isolated on our own we've become. I noticed that in a lot of scenarios where there's a lack of support, we're isolated, or the phones and social media give us this sense that we're connected, but we are quite isolated and on our own. There's nobody telling us messages. There's nobody acting in leadership type roles. There's a huge amount of how to live that we never picked up or never got officially. School is not geared to handle that. We've got to get into that a lot. But what happens in that vacuum of guidance, support, advice, leadership, direction? We're on our own, and I see people, I see myself also making this leap, an assumption. Okay, I just have to do it myself. I can do it myself. I'll just trust myself. And I was reminded yesterday, there were three really excellent speakers at this conference, and the crowd reaction was just sad and disappointing, but very, very telling. But I'll get into that at another time. But both in the content of what the speakers were talking about, but then also I have to do these credits, like continuing credits, continuing education credits for my licensure in New York State. So I was doing a really interesting lecture series. I keep doing it late at night. I'm falling asleep. So I was doing it in the bus ride down, and I was reminded again. I was getting, there were a lot of messages, there was a lot of information, a lot of ideas, thoughts, ideas about how to practice, how to effectively, or even better, more effectively work with people, help people. Also how to take care of the self. People in the helping profession tend to be poor in the self-care department. It's one of the reasons they go into the helping professions. It's one of the reasons they're so good in the helping professions, is they're able to put their own stuff aside and really tune in, which is one of the things we spoke about what helps in therapy, why therapy works. You're sitting with somebody who's really tuning into you, really listening to you, and not in the way like we spoke, like a friend. We talk with friends and we're thinking about what we're going to say next. But that self-care piece is really important, hugely important. And I was reminded about that again. And therapy can be one of those things. And it's not that you'll see it. Keep your eyes open for it. You'll see it, because we're not a perfectly closed system. There is information coming into us. A blog post will pop up. You'll see something, a video. A friend will mention something. There are ideas that we hadn't considered. However, here's the problem, or the concern. We've gotten so stuck in a paradigm of I'm on my own, I'm all alone, I can handle it, I don't need anybody, that when we hear a message or somebody points out or something is pointed out to us that's important, that we could groove with and connect to, but it didn't come from us. So one of the first feelings and thoughts you may notice feeling, I certainly do, is this kind of beating up the self, frustration. The message and point is forgotten. It's just that I myself didn't come up with it. Like, I'm not perfect, or I missed the idea. And it's really just wrong. We don't have to do it all on our own. Nobody ever said that life was meant to be lived on our own. We get challenges and tests, and we never get anything we can't handle, despite how intense it feels. And if you doubt that, spend some meditative time. Think and meditate on your history. Contemplate on your history. Think about a time in which you were sure it wasn't going to work out, and yet here you are still alive. We're still kicking. So, anyway, we don't have to go it alone. We don't have to do it alone. And we don't have to, we can handle what's coming our way, but it doesn't mean it has to be all by ourselves. I was so grateful for some of the messages that I was picking up yesterday and thinking about. I had to push aside that first thought of why didn't I think of it, or oh, how could I have not have thought about it, or I'm making some mistakes based upon not knowing that information. But I don't have to be perfect. I don't have to have all the answers. It really, what matters is that when I did get the message, it was at the right time, and I grabbed it and I went with it. So, for example, there really needs to be, maybe this is what the next book I'm writing is this the guide for life, like how to live. If there are so many things that we're turning to therapists for help with, life teachers, life coaches, and if you look at what it is, these are ideas that everybody should have been taught. It's just part and parcel of living, being a person, having a body, being in the world, but we never learn them. So we're almost getting ourselves, our lack of knowledge and information is creating problems that we then have to deal with as a problem. And when in truth it would be far better to be emotionally, socially inoculated against some of these issues, because it certainly could be. We just need the education about it. For example, one lecturer was talking about something called compassion fatigue, where something that caregivers, and even if you're not officially a caregiver, a doctor, a nurse, a therapist, a coach, even if you're not in one of those positions, we still the lack of self-care can get us into this. We could not attune to ourselves, or we're absorbing so much of other people's stuff, like something's called secondary trauma, where you're hearing other people's stories, and it almost becomes a part of your own narrative. But it was very interesting. He was talking about how there are things that are stressors in our life, intense stressors, but it's not the stressors that cause the stress. It's how I perceive them. It's my history with that particular thing. Like a particular person calls you, okay, on the phone, and all of a sudden you'll notice you have a certain reaction and you don't answer the phone. So is it the person in the phone call that's causing stress? No, because plenty of other people will call and you don't have that reaction. So what it is that you've learned there's a bunch of things we've learned or come to associate with that particular stimuli, and that's causing us to have a reaction. So we could have several of these things in our life that have become associated with causing stress, and they're just constantly sitting in the background of our life, causing us stress, and the body is then reacting to these stressors, like it's under attack, and muscles are hugely tense, ability to think clearly is reduced, anyway. So this is a very important thing about the importance of self-care. Anyway, I was grateful for the message, and I certainly picked it up with it. It also occurred to me something very interesting. Unfortunately, many of us are dealing with traumas, either primary trauma we went through or secondary trauma that we witnessed in other people, experienced. But one of the features of trauma is thoughts that will kind of jump in, assert themselves into our life, particularly surrounding the trauma. Recurring memories or thoughts, flashbacks, and it's re-traumatizing because it feels very much not in our control. Thoughts often feel that way, especially if we're not actively putting positive thoughts in our minds. So then something has to come in. But it dawned on me something, how traumatic our phones then can become, because if you think about it, the notifications, the buzzings of the phone, the chirping of the phone, is not in our control, even less than our thoughts, that can pop up, buzzing and pushing us and clamoring for our own attention, quite traumatizing. I'm very grateful every Friday night when I turn off for Shabbat and I disconnect from the world. I get that 24 hours, without access, without the buzzing of so much contact, so much connectivity. I don't know how people do it, to go 24/7, with so much things, but it's a really traumatic kind of a feature. The fact that the phone at any moment could buzz and insert itself into my life and clamor for my attention. Anyway, I hope my words are helpful to you. and are helping you to not do it on your own. And it's okay if I'm mentioning something and you hadn't thought of it yourself, and just grab the ideas and go for it and share them with other people, and we each can be there for each other and help each other in ways that we need. Because we can handle the things that we're going through, but nowhere does it say that we have to do it alone. Anyway, you're with me here in the car, sitting there, so to speak. Have a good day.